Hi, everyone. Welcome to Office Hours in our austere version. Welcome to the austere version of Office Hours. With little network issues today, so we are running with one engine today. So we're gonna stick with Q&A today, and so we'll have Q&A for as long as you send questions in. Not to put too much stress on the system, but yeah. So I want to thank our incredible team on the back end. We had some network issues on the back end today, and the team in about a half an hour figured out how do we make sure that we still have a show. That's office hours. Like, it's peak office hours. So just really, really well done to everyone on the back end to make sure that we had a show today. But we will stick with general Q&A. So go ahead and throw those questions in. And if you have, if you're in Makana, of course, you can ask questions, vote questions, chat on questions. If you're not in Makana, you can go ahead and go to askofficehours.global. That's askofficehours.global. You can ask those questions 24/7. So if you watch this and you see this, me announcing this, you can go ahead and throw a question and we'll get it in the next day or two. We'll let people vote on them once they're in Makana, but go ahead and throw those questions in. Once again, it's askofficehours.global. Let's go ahead and jump into the first question. Bill, what do we have?
Our first one comes from Frito Parr in Kent in England. What setup are you all using to keep your eyeline direct to camera?
And go ahead, Nigel.
Okay, so I use a little teleprompter. I can't find it anymore, but something like this you can find on Amazon for not too much money, probably about $100. You can build yourself one if you're that way inclined, and that stands on a tripod. It has my camera behind it, and I look at it. So these are pretty easy to do, but however, I found a trap that I got caught in, which is, what are you actually projecting? So most of these things you'll show an iPad, and of course an iPad you can't swap round. So what most of us use is a little monitor, like a 10 or a 12-inch monitor, so we can look at ourselves in Zoom, or you can actually take the output from the computer, make it a second monitor. So what I'm actually looking at is the second monitor on my Mac Mini into a 10-inch little screen that's been flipped over. I bought a screen that didn't flip over. The Lilliputs, I believe, will flip over. So I then had to buy a decimator to flick it over. So in the end, I spent quite a lot of money on this. So you'll see the iPad ones, but beware of the iPad. It's great for reading text, not so good if you're trying to use it as a Zoom tool.
Go ahead, Bill.
Yeah, doing exactly the same thing that Nigel just described. A couple of interesting things about it. First and foremost, even though I have a teleprompter in front of me, I have struggled since day one because most of my radio training in the early days, I didn't have anything to look at. So I got used to being able to talk into a microphone and do all sorts of other things. And I still find that the training of my brain to maintain eye contact has been the biggest challenge for me. Even though I have put different signals on the teleprompter and that screen that I'm using to try to keep eye contact, I think it's mostly a wetware issue in my case. And so I would suggest that if you decide you want to do this and make better eye contact, practice, practice, practice. My wife almost every other day says, you did great today, but you didn't maintain eye contact as well as you should have.
Good, Chris.
I have a question. First of all, I'm the worst at the eye contact. I have too much stuff in front of me, distracting me, and I don't have a teleprompter. I'd like to get one. I'm still looking at the Elgato. Does anybody know? Does the Elgato give you the ability to flip the image?
I think it does. Yeah. Yeah,
Cool.
I'm pretty sure. The big challenge with the Elgato is not the flipping of the image. It is the fact that it doesn't have an HDMI in, so it's expecting a USB-C in. So if you want to go from your switcher, you'll have trouble, with that. But if you want to go straight from your computer, you should be good to go.
Yeah,
The
I
upside of it-
think that the thought process in that is you just hook it up as a monitor, drag your speaker view over, done.
Yeah, you were going to say something, Nigel?
I was just going to say the upside of all of that is for the Stream Deck users. It all integrates with the Stream Deck, and but it's not an HDMI monitor. It's a USB-C monitor. So you can't send something from somewhere else.
Go ahead, Ronnie.
Yeah, and if you don't do it that way, using a prompter or just looking at the camera as I'm doing now, what I used to do is have a camera in front of the screen and just make sure the picture is straight behind the camera. and eye contact will be pretty good, and it works. But of course, you are hiding some stuff on the screen, so make sure you have the window placed correctly.
Go ahead, Alex.
I don't use a teleprompter, but the first thing that I did was basically have my camera on a tripod already at eye level, and then I actually have an LG 43-inch quad display monitor right directly behind it. And so I have zoom on one of the lower left quadrants, and that seems to get me relatively close. It's not perfect, but it's been working for me.
Jason?
I use pretty much the same thing. I'm using something from Prompter People, and I don't use the tablet version. I have an auto-reversing monitor from Prompter People that does basically the same thing.
Next question.
Next one comes to us from Mathieu LeCount in Oakland, California. Recommendation for a no-frills distribution to lobby monitor from a single RED Komodo.
Yeah, I think that it just depends on how far away and what access you have. So do you need to make it wireless for some reason, or is it wired? If it's wired, we would typically use SDI if it's less than 200 feet, and fiber if it's more than that. You could also convert it to NDI if you need to go inside of a network and have it pop out on the other end. So those are probably a couple of solutions that you might be able to take into account. Those would be kind of, let us know how far, if you ask another question, let us know how far you're trying to run. Can you run a solid line? Do you need to use wireless? Or, we'll always recommend a hardwired fiber or SDI connection. That's, for something that matters. But I think an NDI solution could solve this as well, and potentially getting through a network to get it there. So that's a possibility as well. Next question.
Next one comes from Paul Wallace in Austin, Texas. The Oscars are on ABC Sunday night. Will you watch at all? And if you do, will it be over the air, on cable, or streaming? And if streaming, which streaming service?
Nigel?
I actually think ABC have the Oscars this year, which probably means you need to use your local television app if you're streaming. If you have something like YouTube TV or one of those things, you can probably get your ABC channel. It may well be on Hulu as well, I've heard. But I have to tell you, nothing will get me to watch the Oscars. We are going to watch Wonka instead.
Go ahead, Bill.
Yeah, I probably will, because I'm just interested in award show kind of presentation. In fact, one of the bits of ephemeral information I heard is that the orchestra in the pit for the Oscars has to learn 157 cues, because they have to know the themes from every nominated show, because they don't know who's going to win. And when they win, this is the level of professionalism they exhibit. They want to do walk-on music from the score of that presentation. I think that's serious pros working at the top of their game. I know things will go wrong, but I just want to see how they pull off this complicated a presentation.
Yeah, I have it set to record on YouTube TV. I will probably skip through it and look at the production value. so that I'm not really that interested in the show itself, but I will look through it. I thought that the last year's Oscars was exceptionally well produced. Like, I just will say that it's not always been well produced, and most award shows are not particularly well produced. But I thought that there were a lot of things. We'll probably look at it and cover it to some degree, or at least talk about it next week, because there's usually a lot to learn. And I felt like they really did it well. The way that they framed everything, if you look at everything about the framing and you break down what they did last week, I thought that it was last year, it was astoundingly good. I don't know how they make it better, to be honest. It's just, the production quality was so high. I didn't watch the whole film. I just skipped. When I say this is me skipping through it and looking at little pieces like, oh, there, look at that. But the framing and a lot of the production value, the camera quality, they have this one thing to watch for is last year they had this great vertical extending teleprompter that when they went to do the announcements for it, you'd see it roll in and go up. You'd see it going up or down as they were announcing it. So instead of having a teleprompter somewhere low or somewhere in the back of the room where you'd see it in the past, or somewhere kind of off to one angle, it was right in the middle, and they just brought it right up. And then they had it go back down again, which I thought was a pretty genius way to manage that, but it was really well done. So I'm excited of skipping through it in my YouTube record. I'm not that, and I'll probably review it. I got this whole review station I've been building, so I might use that as one of my first things to do. Yeah, go ahead, Alex.
Yeah, I don't know if you have any inside knowledge, but I'm just curious, what kind of do we know what kind of cameras they would use at a show like that? Are they using smaller broadcast sensors? Are they using full
I mean,
frame? Or-
usually, I don't know what they're using. I'll see if I can find out, but I don't know what they're using. Typically, these are the highest end broadcast, Sony broadcast cameras are typically the most common cameras for them to use for the Oscars. And these are usually 2/3 chips. They're not usually like a Super 35 sensor. These are relatively old school broadcast chips. I'd love to see them move to a, shooting everything with Venices or something like that. But I think the broadcast teams that do these are pretty accustomed to what they have, so they stick with what they have there. There's a lot of risk because a lot of people watching. So, next question.
Douglas Carmichael's up next, and Douglas says the ABBA Voyage team will offer a calmer show for neurodiverse fans, reduced capacity sensory rooms, and so forth, but with no sound or lighting changes. Could that be because the technical complexity of the show, or because of the technical complexity of the show, or because the nature of the experience?
Let's go to the one person in our panel that has actually been to the ABBA show. Go ahead, Nigel.
So I'm not sure I know the answer to that. I just know that you're not getting the experience. And while this is very tough, what you'll end up watching is a video of the ABBA team performing on a screen, listening to the soundtrack. And that will be fun. And if they use the live band that plays along, it'll sound great. But part of the experience, except for one song, and we've talked about this before, where they sort of show a movie rather than their projections, which sort of breaks the thing up a little bit. What's the amazing experience about ABBA Voyage is you're watching 4 people projected on a screen or on a screen of some sort. They're not really holograms. But the way they've done the lighting and the sound system, it's very hard to know what's real and what's virtual at some point. So if you search for pictures, you'll see the lighting extends into the audience. So I suspect if they turn off lots of the lighting effects and turn down the sound, you could probably have something that is probably better for neurosensitive people. However, you're not getting the Voyage experience. You're really watching a concert on a screen.
Next question.
Samuel Nordvik in Norway is up next. Are you aware of a production software that can play out video files while overlaying SRT subtitles, preferably if the text could be formatted and placed into a lower third?
Go ahead, Ronnie.
I'm pretty sure MIDI can do this. I was just busy testing this while I suddenly had to answer this question. So test MIDI. I'm pretty sure that will work.
Yeah, I think that for some reason I think the Softron will do it as well, but I'm not 100% sure. It's converting. What normally happens in these situations is that there is there's line 21, which is the VANC data. This is VANC data that basically is encoded. So it's not really the SRT file that it's reading. It's encoded into the video file has some data in it, and in that data is encoded. Now, normally the way we would do that when we want a video file to play out somewhere down the path, because we usually don't want to burn it in, what we want to do is make it available to the player. And most of the players can see that data. That data is converted usually at the encoder level. So basically in your SDI video chain, you have the VANC data there, and it's got the captions that are built into it. And basically they go into there, they're encoded, and oftentimes those are converted in your encoder to a VTT segments that are going along with the audio and the video segments inside of an HLS stream. And those are made available to the player, and the player then can grab onto them if you turn them on. That's how it works when you're watching TV, and they can be in many languages. And there's just think of them as a segments, different set of segments for every language, and you're just choosing what you're playing or what you're showing, and that overlays it. And usually that's the way we want to do it. If you want to take that VANC data and convert it to something and burn it into the screen, there's actually hardware that will take the VANC data itself. Again, I don't know. I haven't tried to display SRT or burn SRT into the output, of a file. But what we would typically do is have that in the VANC data, and that can also be. There's hardware that will embed that into the VANC data in real time. So there's a company called EEG that makes what's called a 492, And what it'll do is it'll have this thing called iCap, and iCap can be another person on the other end, or it can be AI on the other end. It will deliver that data in real time. I mean, it's human real time or AI real time, but it's 2 to 4 seconds behind. And it will be, but it'll be embedded into that SDI feed. That SDI feed will be then delivered, and then that all the stuff I just said will happen. If you, but there, the 492, and there are some other hardware appliances from EEG that will turn it on, make it open captions instead of closed captions, and it'll turn it on. In fact, some of the EEG ones will let you put it in different places. Like sometimes you want the caption to go across the top, sometimes you want them to go across the bottom, sometimes in the middle. You can set up what lines you're putting it on. There's like, I think that there's like eight lines that are available to you to put onto that stream. And so anyway, those are the kind of things you want to do. But to do it well, I would suggest bank data and hardware that solves that problem. But Ronnie, now that I've talked long enough, has been able to see if it works in MIDI. And now that I've stalled long enough, I'm going to hand it back to Ronnie.
Yeah, it definitely works. You just have to have the SRT files named the same as the video file, and then it automatically enables it, and you can decide to show it or not.
See, I stalled with information as long as I could, and then I saw Ronnie put his hand up, and we're good to go. All right, next question.
Next question comes from Chris Fenwick in Emeryville, California. And here on the panel, Alex, I'd like to do a brief rundown of what I learned about posting 1080 by 1920 vertical to YouTube Shorts in reference to the safe title issues.
Chris, let us share your wisdom.
He said safe title. So I find this interesting because Alex, if you've watched Alex long enough, you'll know that he doesn't believe in safe title anymore because it's the 21st century and he puts pixels, he hangs pixels right off the edge of the frame. But I like to cut them off. I know, I've seen it. In vertical video, we have a new problem. So the YouTubes, they ask for 1080 by 1920, which is HD on its side. And I want to show you what I found. So if you take a look at, I made this image, and this image is a 1920 by 1080 on its side with concentric 100 pixel bands. So 100 to okay? So that's going down to the blue square. If you take that video, if you take that image and you put it in a video and you post it on a YouTube short, and you view said YouTube short on your desktop, this is what you get. You get all the bands. You get all the pixels. You could see they round the corners ever so slightly. Who cares? Doesn't matter. But then you take the same video,
desktop,
and
right?
That's on a desktop. You take the same video and you watch it on your mobile and you see, safe title. So they've trimmed, I'm going to say roughly 55, 60 pixels. I could do the math and figure it out later. Off the side. So you don't get all the side. So one of the things that we were talking about the other day is let's make, I'm calling it a placemat, a mortise, to put people in for when we post vertical videos. And I said, it'd be great. And I know that today we're not using it, but it'd be great to use our sort of map background. And I wanted to show you what that would look like. So here's our images. So if we take our little map background and we cut a hole in it and we push it up, and the reason we're doing that is I want to put a little bit of what I'm calling the chin here, which is where we would put the subtitles coming out of Opus. It's like, okay, so that would look good. And then what would it look like with a head? Oh, what an adorable kid.
With so much hair.
That's me. And then if you take that and post it, this is what you end up getting. So you can see it's trimming a little bit of the edges, but it still looks like our show. It looks like our show. It's got a big area down here for all your subtitles. You're always gonna be fighting with some of this stuff. I'm not recommending we try and put all of this stuff in the blue. The head would just get way too small, but I think it looks nice. And you got a nice little place down here for all your subtitle-y stuff. What do you think?
I like it. I think the only thing that I'd be tempted to do is to just get rid of the side parts, because what bothers me is
madness.
Actually, it's the part that will bother, that I would keep on staring at is the up and down, and the little areas that are on the lines there will make me crazy. Like I would just keep staring at it. Like I can't. It's part of the line and not part of the line. And so I think that that's the only thing that I would. I actually like the bottom part more than I thought I would. And I think that you could. I kind of like the idea of framing the top so that our video isn't going off. But I think that you could also just do it across the bottom, like where you create that clean, because putting that bottom piece in would allow us to scale down and like basically scale our faces down, but also have them be, you just lose a lot of that bottom area and not have it. But I like the idea of making sure that our faces, I think you could, I don't know if you need the top and sides. I think that what I would say is I still think I think you need a bottom. And I think that allows us to scale the 16:9 back to a place where our heads look very comfortable. And I do like the idea of putting something just over it, but I'm not sure if I'm buying the side part. Yeah, go ahead, Ronnie.
Since we probably will be sending Fenwick to the South Pole for the next winter season, I will agree with him, and not with you, Alex. I think
there you go.
from a kind of a visual perspective, I think it's a good idea to make a little bit space on the right side and left side, and make it pop out kind of more. But this is the most important thing is still that we don't have to readjust the framer that we already have, because then I had to purchase a new lens. So
I will say that this is a bad example. I just had this image available. So, and it's me. So, and you know how I like seeing more of me. But I will say that this is a topic that's been coming up a lot with me, and maybe it's just my obsession, but I've had like a lot of discussions with Predo. Ultimately, doesn't really matter. And this is why things like this should never be, in my opinion, should never be a democracy. This should just be, just tell us what you want, Alex, we'll do it, whatever. But I think it's an interesting exercise to go through the math of it, to figure out what was happening. Because the fact that my phone is longer than 16:9 was super bothering me. So I wanted to play with it and figure it out. But I do think that, you make decisions, and some people are going to like it, some people aren't. I think the part that alarms me the most, Alex, is you said that looking at the like and dislike buttons and the fact that they're either are on the line or not, I think you said would make you crazy.
I'm already crazy, so it's just really more crazy.
Counseling.
It's really,
you need counseling.
Yeah,
you need some help.
Definitely. There's
we're gonna take up a fund. GoFundMe, get Alex a psychiatrist.
Go ahead, Bill.
I'm actually going to be on Chris's side of this a little bit, and here's why. As an old advertising, marketing, and branding guy, the blue or surround, even a little bit of it, to me, if somebody is trying to take our content and push it into their own services and things like that, it's the one element where you can't just crop the bottom up and look like it's somebody else did it. So it adds a little branding element to my eye, but here or there.
We put it out. It's pretty decisive. We put out the poll to our viewers. So if you're in Makana, you can vote. You only got a second more to vote before I change questions. So I polled them. I said, do you like the frame? And I said, no frame is the first option. Fenwick's frame is the second option. And Alex's idea for lower only is the third option. And the voting came in, and it is a decisive victory. Fenwick frame 16-2. So we will give it a shot. So we'll play with it. Like it was not close. So anyway, and if you're watching here and you wonder, like, how do I get involved? You have to be in Makana. So
but yeah. Remember, the real joy here is we get to make Alex a little more crazy.
A little more crazy than I already am. Yeah, exactly.
Congratulations, Chris.
All right.
You
so
won.
the big winner now, it's 21-2-3. So it's not, you're not going to catch up. So if you're voting now, don't worry about it. Fenwick wins. All right, next question.
Eric Hurst is up next from Hartford, Connecticut. Is there a ZoomISO equivalent for MS Teams? I don't want to use the NDI out of the Microsoft Teams client, rather something server side.
And drum roll, please. Go ahead, Ronnie. Answer first.
I just want to add to the question, because we have a production that is coming up next week. Suddenly, we didn't know that we are going to have a lot of people in Teams, and there is no way we can break out of that. And I'm in charge of streaming that and make it look good. So we're struggling with the same things. My thing that I've been able to do now is to use new Teams, NDI, on the same machine, so a Mac M1 or 2, and then just use MimoLive to pick up those NDI feeds internally. And the good thing is that you can have separate audio doing it with Teams, which is not possible with Zoom without ZoomISO. So I'm looking for the same things.
Yeah. Here's the problem: is there is no ZoomISO equivalent in Microsoft Teams, and here's why: it's because they don't have a native app SDKs. So they don't have the native app SDKs that ZoomISO uses. Only a CloudStream SRT routing tool. So Epiphan is the only thing remotely close, but again, it's still SRT based cloud service. And so that's really your only option there. And the reality is that so what we've done when we've been told we had to deliver to a team, and it wasn't a company that was very tied into Teams, if you know what I mean. We just had all the panelists come in over Zoom. And then we projected it back out to Teams. So we had all the panelists come into Zoom. They're like, what are we doing here? And then we were like, here, just come into here. All the production will look great. And then we basically jumped in as a participant into Teams and delivered the program video out as a participant. And that was the best solution. And of course, people said, this is the best Teams event ever. And I was like, yeah, we used some secret sauce to make that work a little bit better. And they're like, who do you know at Microsoft? It's not who we know at Microsoft. It's who we know at Zoom. So anyway, so that is that's how we fixed that in the past. The problem you're going to have also with Teams is that the resolution is horrid. They say 1080p, but you really only get that with one set of people, and then the resolution starts dropping down. So it's really for doing events, for being tied into the office that you already have. Teams is fine. Like, it is a fine utility for talking to people while you're in Excel. But as a production tool, it is a completely substandard solution. And if you have any choice at all, you should not be using it. Yeah, go ahead, Chris.
Yeah, unfortunately, the real problem is that there is a lot of companies that won't let people, not a lot, there are companies that won't let their people put Zoom on their machines. And if you install it, their IT people snoop. I have one producer I work with at a company that uses Teams. She installs Zoom in the morning only because she has special privileges to be able to install it. And by the next morning, IT has already erased it from her computer. Creepy.
Yeah. No, it's a but again, just know that if you're using Teams, I think most people who are working at a company don't realize how much lower quality your experience is using Teams than it is using Zoom. And so I think that it's not so much that, and if you're building events, you just need to know that you're never going to get there. Like, it's never going to look great. It's just going to survive. And you just need to understand that that's at some point you just kind of shrug your shoulders and do the best you can with the show that you have. But you're not going to be able to squeeze the kind of quality that you see in this show normally. This is a hard day. I don't know what this looks like on YouTube, but it probably looks still better than Teams, even with one engine on. So anyway, it's never going to really look great because, and I just don't think that Microsoft has it in them. Microsoft does a lot of things great. They're a really big company. I don't think they have it in them to make Teams better. Like, I've lost the confidence that they could actually do that, even if they wanted to. Next question.
Alexander Knight here on the panel from Port Coquitlam, British Columbia, says, I've heard that the term Syphon used in conjunction with ZoomISO. What is it?
Go ahead, Ronnie.
First and foremost, Syphon is a technology only for Mac, so please be aware of that. Syphon is kind of, if you imagine an application have a video feed that is created to send out to something, that video is also available inside the application's kind of shared memory, so that another application running on the same machine can instantly get a hold of that first application's image and just use that without the processor or GPU getting more involved. And it's a very efficient way to transport video from one application to another without having to export and import, etc. The one thing that you need to be aware of is audio is not a part of that. It's only the image. So make sure that you have a separate audio route as well.
Go ahead. Next question.
Craig Kadoki is up next from Toronto, Canada. Did we get a Keynote tip this week?
Go ahead, Jason.
It doesn't matter if we did or we didn't. I'll do another one. So
go.
a lot of what we have, a lot of the power of recent Keynote has to do with shapes. And you can drag shapes in, and a lot of the places where I find you can get shapes can be less than great. Nounproject.org, I think it is, for $60 a year, will give you endless, unlimited, just royalty-free access to the entire shapes library. So, you know, if I just take a shape like a mixer and drag it in here, I can take it, and these are SVGs. I can choose the color and the format that I'm exporting here.
Wait, what is this? Who's this?
Oh, yeah, Noun Project. Now I have your attention.
Way.
I can drag it in,
Wait, what's it called?
and then
again?
Noun Project.
Noun
Noun
Project. All right.
So if I right click here and break that apart, that image now becomes a shape, and that shape can be poured into textures and can be scaled and can look really, really great for $60 a year.
Yeah, and it's $60 a year, and then you get all those shapes.
And then you get all those shapes. I mean, you get millions.
How many shapes?
Millions.
Millions? Are you sure it's millions? Is it millions?
Far
I'm
as
sure it's
million.
millions.
You actually
They said
said
million shapes.
unlimited, and that's
And are
more
they
than
all-
millions.
You get
are-
unlimited access to the shape library without any, yeah.
So the
So
question I have for you,
less.
the question that I have is it are those SVGs legal so that you could are those SVGs legal for adding to the shape library in Keynote? So when you, because some of them,
Yes.
some
Well,
SVGs are
almost
some are
always
not.
yes. So let me show you one that doesn't work perfectly, but you can still fix it. So I typed in mixer here, and I'm going to go with a I don't know, a bowl mixer, right? Let's see. We should happen upon one pretty quickly that won't work. So I'm going to go to break apart. Nope, that one worked too. So
Oh, did?
yeah, some of them can work, and not always will all of them work. But again, like there are so many in there that you'd be shocked at how many times like you go in, you go to break apart. Nope, that one worked too. So
That's great.
a lot of them work.
That's great. Well, and I haven't quite figured out, I will say, this is something I've been trying to research. I can't quite figure out what makes a SVG shape editable, or what allows you to add it as a shape and treat it as a shape, and what doesn't. There's some operation, and I haven't had time to sit through it, that
It
allows
has
you
to do with the
either,
structure of the layers. Like it's
it
that
does,
simple.
but I feel like there's got to be there's a way to structure them. All kinds of things that we see here are there. So I'm trying to figure out what that is, and I haven't quite got to the bottom of it. My quick tip is beautifulthings.xyz. We talked about that in the past. It's a web page that lets you bring in USDZ model. It lets you download USDZ models. So here, let me grab that here. Right, So this is Beautiful Things, and all of these are USDZ models. So everything you see here, it's a very random selection of them, but you can download them all for free. You have a little Tesla model and so on and so forth. And the cool thing is that all of these, once you brought them in, you can actually bring them in. Here's a Leica that I downloaded and I brought in, and here, this is what makes it cool, right? So I am in Keynote, and I can actually move this around. I can also animate it, so I could have it like this. If I copy and paste this file here, go back up to this one, and go animate, and say I want to do a magic move, and then I can go back to this one, select this, let's say move it to the back here like this, and now when let's see here, it won't play correctly because it's here. I'll preview it. There it is. And that's a 3D animation inside of Keynote, using just the magic move. And the magic move is the way to do that, is to animate from. So, and then you could add 2D graphics and all kinds of stuff on top of it. Like, look at this and look at this and look at this. And so and if you want to play with those ideas, you can go ahead and grab if you want to play with those ideas, beautifulthings.xyz is a great place to download a bunch of test models that you can play with. Yeah, go ahead, Jason.
So I found one that didn't work. Right, this is a brain, and it's a whole bunch of things put together, and it came in. And when I hit break apart, it came down as a group. So of course, as a group, you can select the top, select the bottom, and then you can actually just unite it and make it. If I hit make editable, it thinks for a second, and then I can combine that and make it a shape, and then combine it and add it to my shapes library, and it works perfectly.
That's stunning. That's stunning. All right, very good. That was a great question, Craig. You pulled out some good stuff. Next question.
Moving to the question from John Foltz in Selinsgrove, Pennsylvania. Adam Toe is a big fan of Apple shortcuts. Is anyone on the panel using them regularly? For me, they're a bit frustrating.
I do use them. I use them a fair bit. The one I've talked about, the one that I use the most is connected to my lights, and so it is if I have so my shortcuts, if I want to turn everything off, because I wasn't turning all my lights off as often as I should, and so it was it's a lot of lights and it costs money and everything else. So now I just have a button that I push and off I go, and then if I grab my watch actually and tap on my watch usually I grab my cup of coffee as I'm walking in for the show, and I just tap my watch as I'm walking towards the office, and while I walk towards the office, I can see all the lights turning on, and I walk in. It feels very James Bond. so anyway, yeah, go ahead, Chris.
Alex, could you do that one more time? Something weird happened. Just hit the shortcut that turns off all your lights. Is your phone controlling my lights somehow?
You're such a funny guy. And there we go. Yeah,
that was
exactly.
Weird.
I didn't want to tell you that I had tied that in, but it was a Saturday project. Next question.
Time for a VPN update. Paul Buchan, Columbus, Ohio. When using AWS MediaLive, it's nice that you can stream to multiple destinations with one channel. But if one destination fails, you have to stop the whole channel to troubleshoot. Is the answer just more channels?
Yeah, you need to have more channels, and it's more complicated than it seems. So with MediaLive, you have to then incorporate Media Connect, and you're basically streaming to yourself and then streaming out to the other ones to build those channels. And we will, when I feel like I know it well enough to explain it in detail in a short little bit of time, we will show you how that works. But it's kind of convoluted. It's amazingly convoluted given how simple it should be to do exactly what you're asking. But yeah, you have to. It's more than just using MediaLive. You're right that if you use MediaLive and you stream out to 4 channels from one MediaLive channel, you're stuck if something goes wrong. And that's why you need to build multiple channels to do that. And then you have to deliver to each one of those the stream. Next question.
Eric Hertz in Hartford, Connecticut says, how can I convert SRT to Syphon? I want to bring in an isolated MS Teams source into Isadora via Epiphan Connect. And he's got a link there for Epiphan.
I'm assuming, so a couple things. One is you could do it with something like MimoLive. Mimo Mimo has its own Syphon delivery. It's its own camera. So that is a Syphon delivery tool. And then you would be able to send SRT to, I believe you can send SRT. I haven't tried to send SRT to Mimo. I've done a lot of other things, but I believe it has an SRT receiver. So that could be one possibility. Next question.
Alexander Knight here on the panel, Port Coquitlam, BC. How could you upscale an input on the ATEM Mini? For example, you're screen scraping something and need to blow it up a little to get rid of some junk.
What you want to do there, I don't know if you can, does an ATEM Mini have, does the ATEM Mini, the little one, have a DVE? Because what you would want to do is,
yes, it does.
You're going to use it. Okay, yeah. So what you want to do is you want to apply that to a DVE, and that DVE is going to allow you to scale it up. Yeah, go ahead, Ronnie.
Yeah, totally. So we use this all the time, and especially for getting team scrapings and get rid of all the noise on the screen. So that's perfectly doable.
And if you're watching, of course, you can ask questions. We're going to do 2 hours of questions Q&A today. We had a little bit of some tech challenges today, and so we're just going to keep it simple. And 2 hours of Q&A. So if you have questions, go ahead and throw those into Mokana. You can also vote on those questions and chat on them, and all the other bits and pieces there. Or if you're watching this later, or if you are not in Mokana, you can go to askofficehours.global. You can ask your question there, and you don't have to sign into anything. You just go in there, throw your question in, askofficehours.global. Yeah, go ahead, Chris. You had another answer for this one?
About the DVE and the ATEM Mini, do you have to bring that back in as an upstream key, I believe?
I think the DVE is an upstream key.
That's what
Yeah,
I
so
thought,
it'd be,
Okay.
you know, the DVE is, that's how you would treat it, as an upstream key. Absolutely. Yeah, go ahead, Alex.
Yeah, I was messing with this yesterday because I was trying to understand. I don't really use the DVE stuff a lot, but I noticed when I turned it on, didn't modify any settings. I just turned it on. I get the little picture-in-picture box. So it didn't really do. I was just trying to
You just
figure
have
how
to
do you.
start adjusting it. I think it does something. If you turned it on and it didn't do anything, it'd be confusing for the user. So I think
Right,
that it's
right.
just a function of it does something dramatic so that you know that you turned it on. But you should be able to go in there and scale that box. So that it's probably the most common use that they think you're going to do. And then you would, but you can scale
So,
that up more than 100%.
okay, so you're just taking that box and you're just making it
Make it
full
bigger.
screen and making it the size you want, so it's just covering. Just
Yep.
yeah, I get it.
Yep. Yeah, go ahead, Ronnie.
Yeah, exactly. So what you will probably do in a practical example is to add the correct input to the DVE and then put that on preview, or tie is it called, I guess, and adjust all the framing and cropping and sizing. You can zoom in and zoom out, and you can crop the left, and you can move it left and right, etc., and make it make sure that you get rid of all the garbage, or at least try to get everything out, and then you do the cut, and then it will follow the cut. Just remember to take out the auto tie before you go back.
Next question.
Hemoslavin in Kyopio says, how much is a tag with Blackmagic ATEM and Streaming Bridge? How much there is tag?
Lag.
Lag. I read it wrong. Sorry about that. Is the lag reasonable for dialogue? If I connect two venues both ways and stream content between them, will that lag be a problem?
Jason.
Okay, right when this came out, Guy and I did a lot of testing, and if memory serves, using all the bandwidth in the world, it's between about a half and maybe a third of a second or so. The quality is astounding, but keep in mind it only goes one way, so you would actually need to be streaming to and from with two completely separate systems. Other than that, yeah, you could. I'm not sure if I would, but you could.
Ronnie.
Yeah, exactly the same. We have 3 of the streaming bridges, and we actually don't use it because of its too high lag. So we started using Zoom instead, which is a lot better, and you get a much nicer flow in the conversation. But if the scenario here is that you just want to transfer video and you don't need necessarily to have a dialogue between those sites or venues, it could definitely be done.
Yeah, I when you say venue, I'm not sure that technology is really built to be a venue-to-venue technology. I don't know if I would go down that path. When we've done low latency, we've done Zoom mostly. So we brought people from New Zealand to London and broadcasted it out to lots and lots of people. And it was relatively, it's a really easy thing to turn on and make it work. If you want a little bit more control over bandwidth and send more bandwidth down that path, you can look at things like Stream Voodoo. It's going to let you send, for point to point, for roundtable like what we're doing here. I'm not sure that would work well, but for point to point, it could be a reasonably good solution. One thing that we're also looking at right now is Zixi with FEC, which they keep on telling us is like zero latency. I'm like, every time someone says zero latency, I'm kind of like, I don't believe anything you say now. But it would be, but we're told that it's very, very low latency. So we're going to be testing that as well for these kind of venue connections. Of course, when you need to do it at scale, there are one step up from those things is stuff like LTN, which is going to be open internet connection with hardware boxes. And then the next step up above that will be the switch, which is very, very, very low latency, very high reliability, very high bandwidth connections between venues. That's what you see at the Olympics and sporting events and so on and so forth. Next question.
Werner Putschert in Zurich, Switzerland is up next, and he says, I have, I'm sorry, I got this out of control here. Robbie Rafferty in Central Florida. Nvidia RTX users have access for the tools now to make their own AI chatbot locally. Thoughts? And he has the link there.
I think this is going to be really useful for companies that don't want to put something in the cloud. So being able to have local instances that you're able to train with your own data and then be able to interrogate that data in a natural language is going to be very powerful. There's a big future here, especially if you're working for a three-letter agency, or if you're working with a large company, or if you're working with things that, you have a lot of closed data that you want to be able to just interact with. It's going to change how we look at stuff. Instead of searching and doing greps and doing all the old-fashioned things that we were doing, trying to find data, just say, hey, how does this work? Or what does this look like? And it's grabbing it. But a lot of that data is stuff that you don't want out of your government agency. You don't want out of your large corporation. You don't want out of whatever you're in. So I think it's going to be very powerful. I think that NVIDIA is continuing to fire on all cylinders. Next question.
Now, Warner Pershit in Zurich, Switzerland, I have an old Mark I 15-button Elgato Streamdeck. The fixed USB cable has a problem, close to the male end. Seems a waste to throw it away. I suspect it's a normal USB 2.0 cable that I would have to replace. Any advice on how I could fix this?
Jason?
Yeah, the way to fix this. So let's just get into the guts here. Here is a normal USB 2.0. And what you have are 5 connections. You've got the shielding and then 4 connections, a 5 positive, a ground, and then data negative and data positive. These are tiny little wires, but you basically just need really small cable caps and a set of pliers to clamp them down. If you don't want to solder it, it's pretty small. I wouldn't try soldering. I just use cable caps and split them out far enough and just sacrifice a USB 2.0. And if you don't get it the first time, pull it apart, do it again. You'll be fine.
I would solder them. Soldering is so much more fun. So, and my only tip is I just got a new Helping Hands. Oh, they're so good. So you got getting a good one with it has a vise built into it. Anyway, sorry. Next question.
Chris Widener, Indianapolis, Indiana. Up next, Osee GoStream HDMI Pro live streaming multi-camera video mixer switcher with NDI Updatable. Anyone looked at these?
So many things. Yeah, go ahead, Nigel.
So I have been looking at it, and it's an ATEM Mini Pro, a Mini compatible product. What's interesting about it is there are 2 HDMI outputs and 2 USB-C, which I don't think you get on the Mini. I think you have to go to the Extreme to get that. The NDI looks really interesting, but I haven't yet seen what the quality of that is. The thing that might scare me off this, though, is, with Blackmagic, I get the Blackmagic ecosystem. So I get Mix Effect Pro, I get all of those things I get, grading on my camera. So in the end, this looks like somebody's seen an opportunity to make a clone. They've added probably an extra output to help differentiate it. But the NDI is interesting, but I don't know what the quality of that looks like or how you practically do that in this model yet.
I would have a hard time, using this in production. so that's all I would say. Next question.
Next one comes from Eric Hertz in Hartford, Connecticut. Why bother with YouTube Live when it's so inexpensive to just use Zoom?
Number one is that you still have to get into Zoom to look at it. And so, when we send this to YouTube Live, we are making it available to the rest of the world for forever, or for as long as we want to. And so when we're streaming to it, we don't have to think about anything else. I don't have to capture it or record it. It's just available, and that's really when we moved to Zoom, you moved to YouTube. It wasn't so much so that we were in Zoom for the first 6 months, about the first 6 months, we were just in Zoom. I don't think it was that much more that I think we started streaming just from Zoom before we turned it into a real show. And the reason we're doing it today is streaming to Zoom is because we have a lot of people that are used to watching it on YouTube. We're not going to all tell them at the last minute, hey, it'd be great if you went into Zoom, and this is all going to get recorded to make that work. So if you're asking about it today, it's because we have a fair number of people watching that are used to it being here. Also, it means it's automatically recorded. The moment we finish the show, even during the show, people can go back and start watching it. And so, so we don't have to think through that process. YouTube's a really powerful archive tool for us. And that's been primarily how we've used it. But yeah, so yeah, it's been great. And the reason we do it on a regular basis is because the show that we build for YouTube, when everything's working, is far superior as far as look and feel than anything we could build inside of any interaction tool like Zoom. What we're taking advantage of is the incredible tools that are inside of ZoomISO with a great dev team to make all that happen. And it looks a lot nicer than it would if it was just inside of Zoom. Next question.
Kyle Hammond in Chicago, Illinois is up next in streaming a theater performance from the back room of a bar via Mimo. We are displaying the stream feed to the bar TVs using MimoLive, but currently it has about a 1-second latency from the computer. How would I tighten that latency?
Go ahead, Ronnie.
You don't say how you are streaming it directly to the bar, so it could be something there. But as a general rule of thumbs, MimoLive is not kind of optimized for AMAG. But one thing you can test is to see if the delay is going out from MimoLive or if the delay is inside MimoLive. You can even use Syphon just to test that. Have a Syphon viewer watch the video coming out of MimoLive and compare those two. But I would probably go hardware in that situation.
Chris?
Kyle, there's the possibility if you just buy a couple rounds for the bar, they won't care that it's out of sync.
Exactly. That's the key way to fix it. I think I might have mentioned this on another show. I was watching this marketing. There's this marketing guru that's on TikTok that, from his shows, they post stuff up, and he said that did we talk about the elevators? That the elevators, people were complaining that the elevators were going too slow. And so they said, we can spend millions of dollars fixing the elevator, or we can just put mirrors in the elevator. And when they put the mirrors in the elevator, all the complaints stopped because people had something to do. They were like primping and looking at each other, at themselves, but they literally put mirrors in the elevator and all of the complaints stopped. Like 100% of them just ended because so it was fixing the it was solving the complaint, but not fixing it the way that they asked you to fix it. I thought it was an incredible lesson in managing things. But yeah, you're going to need hardware to do this. If you want to put it in a bar, you're going to want to run it through. The best way to put it through a bar is gen-locked. The best way to put it into iMag is a gen-locked camera into an SDI switcher that is going to be, everything's locked together, and it's going to output that, and you're going to end up with a frame or two that you're losing. But as you move away from that solution, you will see more and more latency. Next question.
Next one comes from Stephen Montagna in Madison, Wisconsin. I'm jealous of the host's setup, especially the sense of depth. Suggestions for dealing with video conferencing when you don't have a lot of depth distance between you and your background, as in just 2 feet? Ways to light without looking flat.
Alex?
Yeah, absolutely. 2 feet's, that's not a lot of room to work with, but you can still have a good looking frame. Usually what I do is I always start with lighting, and I start by thinking about what kind of vibe am I trying to go for. Like with my set, for example, I picked that kind of gold looking light because I was going for a warm vibe. And what I'm about to say, this may sound silly. One of the things that I like to do for inspiration is I actually like to just browse IKEA and look at all the sets for different design ideas. So one of the things I ended up actually getting was I thought a fake potted plant would look good there to add a kind of earthy tone, and the kind of reddish brown look of the ceramic I thought looked good with the warm gold color of the lights back there. So just think about what kind of vibe you're trying to go with, and lighting is key.
Yeah, go, Jason.
I'll give a slightly more technical answer. If you have a camera that does good autofocus, you can always get a much faster lens, and that will give you really good fake bokeh without keeping your without losing your foreground. So, I'm not 8 feet away the way I should be. This is, maybe 6 feet from the background that you're seeing. And as long as you can stay on your focus, that's a pretty good way to do it.
Good, Ronnie.
Yeah, totally. And in this lens specifically, it's a 1.4 lens. So using a little bit money on the lens will definitely get you there. And as you can see, the background is kind of starting to get out of focus. It's not very far back there. But the question is primarily on the lighting, and my 2 key lights are right in front of me. And you should angle them as wide as you can to have them light up your face and body and not the background. or you can even flag them so that they don't shine on the background. But there is another way to do it, and this goes back to using tools like MimoLive. And Oliver the other day showed us a really nice trick. He had the same camera input on 2 different layers. The front layer he masked out and made transparent, so only the face is showing, or the body is showing. And on the background, he blurred the background level, which is actually the same picture, but just to make it blurred. And then you can adjust the intensity on that background image and make the background darker. That is a really good tip coming to you.
Good, Nigel.
Just for reference, because Ronnie gave the 1.4, I'm at 2.8. It's about 4.5 feet back there. So that the thing you see in the back is, and again, so the lower the number of the f-stop, or the higher the number, I always get those the wrong way around, the more charge you have.
Yeah, the 1 point, like you can get down to 1.2, even 1.0. There's even some lenses out there that are like 0.9. And so you can get really, really, really short depth of field to shorten that out a little bit. Another thing that you can do is the challenge you have when you're that close is whether you have any kind of lighting that's of you, any shadowing that's going on to that background. If you don't have that, or if you're able to light that, you could put a green screen back there if you've got a good keyer like an Ultimat. And then what you do is, the key is, what I did for the beginning of the show actually, is that I took my camera, same position, same angle, everything, and took it out of focus of another room in my house. And then I put it back in, keyed myself over top of that. And so that gave it a sense of depth and scale that most people didn't even know, like you when they looked at it, because now I was using a really high-end keyer at 4K and then going down to 1080p, so then I was oversampling it a little bit, and so it looked good and very well lit green screen. But that's another way to pull that off a little bit. Also remember that Apple has that if you come in and you treat it as a webcam, Apple has a pretty good solution for that, but it has to think it's a webcam, and it'll do a softening of that, which can push what you have a little bit further. But don't use the ones that are built into most of the like Zoom or Microsoft or whatever. Those are really blurs that are designed to obscure what's behind you. They're a utility, and they're not something that makes you look better. The next question.
Andy Kokendorfer is up next from Viera, Florida. Office Hours multi-streaming. Which social platforms were chosen and why, and how will you manage questions from multiple platforms?
And we'll bring this second hour back up again once we get everything running again. But YouTube is obviously the first one, and we're going to be doing some streaming to multiple channels. We already have in the past. We're going to stream to Facebook and X, and that is mostly so we know how they work. Twitch is another one that's on our list. The big one that we really we think is going to be our biggest market is LinkedIn, actually. But we want to make sure that all of our ducks are in a row before we start streaming to it. So we're working on that. We've got some data from them on how to get that set up. We're going to start doing test streams fairly soon. But we think LinkedIn is going to be a great solution for some of what we're doing, just because it's a professional social area, and we're sometimes professional, except when Chris is here, and it's not
Professionalish.
So we're professional. It's that I'm
Everybody
not
needs a
professional when
foil,
Chris is here.
Alex.
Chris is the utmost of professionalism. I'm not
Yes.
professional when Chris is around. So anyway, but we think LinkedIn will be a great solution for us as well. Next question.
Next one comes to us from A. Barrera, Flowery Branch. Looking for 4 terabyte to 8 terabyte external drives. I can edit video from using my M1 Mac Studio. I only have 2 terabytes internal hard drive. I do have a 10 gigabit Ethernet port. What do you recommend?
Go, Jason, real quick.
OWC will allow you to, whoops, wrong thing.
Whoop, we lost you, Jason. When you went to that, you shared your audio, and you're gone. What I will say while we wait for Jason's audio to come back, I would really recommend for 4 to 8 terabytes the NVMe from the NVMe drive. It's a RAID drive from, and I can't think of the name of it right now, but I have a couple of them, and they are
Express 4M2.
Yeah, Express 4M2. That is, you can do 4 NVMEs, and it works exceptionally well. Yeah, that's it right there. That's what Jason's showing there. And that's super fast. I think you can get up to 32 terabytes if you put large enough NVMEs in. We will be continuing our Q&A here in just a second. A quick reminder that, of course, we'll have the panel meeting. If you're in a panel and you'd like to stay up to date with what we're doing that tomorrow at 9 a.m. And we're also having the European meeting for the NAB production at 10 a.m. tomorrow. All right, we don't have a tool to go black. So anyway, next question. Yeah. All right, next question.
Next one comes to us from Alexander Knight from Port Coquitlam, BC, here on the panel. Alex, any feedback on the latest Vision Pro OS update? I'm hearing it's significantly better and personas are more detailed.
You know, with the last update, I've had some issues where I've been able to successfully get the apps into a state where they don't make any sense. Like they're lost. So I don't know whether it's the apps or whether it's the update, but I've gotten to a place where I'm in one place and the controller's behind me and I can't quite get them to recenter. So it's been a little bit more challenging. I will say the personas look nicer. So that's a big thing. And we're going to keep on seeing it. We really are. If you're buying into the headset right now, you're buying into being a guinea pig in this process, and I'm totally fine with that. Yeah, go ahead, Nigel.
I just wondered, now we're 6 weeks in or whatever it is, how many hours a week are you using your headsets, the guys that have it? Are you testing the new software, or you actively got it in a flow that you use regularly?
Yeah, go ahead, Alex.
I'm just curious, has anyone seen, or Alex, did you see John Gruber's, the last episode of his video podcast on YouTube? He did it with the Lonely Sandwich guy, and they did it just as personas, which I thought was really, really interesting. It was weird at first, but it's
haven't seen it.
Neat.
To answer Nigel's thing, I'm doing about I haven't seen that one, but I'll definitely check it out because I think I'll be curious as to whether they did it with the new version of personas or the old version, because there is a pretty big jump in quality. And I think we're kind of waiting for that. I think it'll be kind of fun to do when the very first version was a little rough, but it's coming up to speed really quickly. I probably spend 10 or 15 hours a week in which is more than my meta. And here's the thing is that I don't put it on until I'm done with work. And the reason for that is that I lose track of time. There's no clock in it. And it is so comfortable for me to stay in and fiddle about that I suddenly realize, oh, I've been gone for an hour. Like I've been gone for an hour and a half, and I can't put it on in the day because I'll sit there and I lose. It's a really odd experience that I've had that I lose track of time, and there's so many things for me to do. Now, I think that it also is because I'm a full Apple user. I've got 650 movies inside of my Apple TV, my Apple TV Plus or whatever. I've got my notes and my video, I use all the Apple apps. And so it's very I can be in that environment and a lot of things are happening there. Movies are a big thing that I watch, in the evening. I might watch a show or I might watch a piece of a movie that I like. I don't watch a lot of whole movies. It's a lot of time. But I'll watch segments of it, and the quality of the video is so high that it's getting harder and harder to watch TV. It's just you watch TV and you're like, oh, okay, it's a little soft. Yeah, go ahead, Jason.
Yeah, for me, it's maybe 10, 12 hours a week. I will, plus one on that, I will completely and totally get lost in it. And this is going to sound like a humble brag. It's not, because it annoys me. I have really good vision. And when I'm using pass-through mode,
Right.
everything's a little bit soft, and it's a little bit soft in a way that really bothers me. So I actually have to turn on the surrounding in order to get lost. But once I do, I'm all the way gone.
Yeah, I have a tendency to turn off everything. I mean, I tend to scroll it in, unless I have to. Here's the worst part: is if I have to get up and get a drink, I just scroll it back out again. I walk over, I get my drink, get a tea.
Do you ever hold that front frame so you can hold it in front of you while you're walking?
I have seen people do that. I have not. I leave it behind. I just leave. I'm going to leave this here, and I come back and it's still there. Yeah, go ahead, Chris.
Alex, you had said you were getting contacts or the lenses. How's that working?
Yeah, so
Did you get
I've ordered the lenses. They haven't come yet. I was a little behind on getting my prescription in, and so they would have sent them to me immediately. They would have gotten here before my headset, but I had to schedule. It took a long time for me to schedule my eye appointment, and so I'm waiting for those. But I have contacts, and so that's what I usually do. In the end of the day, I put my contacts in. I jump, I oftentimes will jump into the Vision Pro, I might do a FaceTime with somebody. I might hang out a little bit, watch a little bit of, just like a little bit of but that's usually 6 or 7 at night is usually when I start to slow down. And then, and fiddle about. Then I often am still, here's the funny thing is I then put on a Meta. I put on the Quest 2 and I do, there's a thing called Supernatural, which is like my evening work. I have a morning workout and an evening workout, trying to get back in shape. My evening workout is doing Supernatural in Meta. And it's just nice because it's a small space, and right now, because of a bunch of reasons, my workout area in my garage is packed with things. So I needed something that I could just do. And my biggest problem with working out is just I get bored. Like I get bored. And so if I'm not in a big gym that I can go from thing to thing to thing, I get bored pretty quickly on like repetitive things. And so I find that those things work. So, so I switch back and forth between the two pretty quickly.
I was gonna say, have you ever accidentally tried to put the Meta headset on over the Vision?
No, not had that problem.
Just checking.
But what's again, I think that the interesting thing is the difference between the Meta and the Apple Vision is that the Meta is an appointment of things I know what I'm going to do when I get in. I'm going to go do those, and then I take it off and put it down. And I think part of it's the ecosystem is that I don't have all my other stuff there. I don't have movies. I don't have like all those things, and so it really has undermined my use of it. But I still enjoy it, and it's fine. It's obviously lower resolution, but it's also much cheaper. I mean, I paid $250 for the Vision or the Quest 2, so.
That's like a little personal field trip to Cupertino, the happiest place on earth.
I'm surprised they haven't done some more little tours in the headset. I imagine they will. Next question.
Clayton from Edmonton comes in via QR code for this one. I was watching this car race and noticed that all the remote cameras were hard saturating on car light reds and blues. Rest of the footage looked fine. Do they film in a narrow gamut for wireless bandwidth reasons? And he's got a link to a YouTube video showing that.
Well, I would look at the if it's the, there's a couple things that could happen there, and I wasn't able to look at this before it went up here today. While we have time, let's see if we can pop this in real quickly here. Let me see here. Let's try to do this and see if we can't find something. We've got a little bit of time here. So turn off the audio. You can probably hear it in the background there. So here it is here. And so if you're seeing things, this is a pretty typical problem. If what you're looking at is that some of the stuff looks over compressed, it's breaking up. RED traditionally has an enormous amount of problems in H.264 compression. Or any kind of compression tends to bash. I'm just trying to find where some of the stuff that might have been popping out for you, but it's pretty common that RED will kind of blow out as well as any other pure colors. So that's probably, you'll see a lot of this stuff happening here. So RED itself does not compress well. We always have to which is not great news for T-Mobile or Verizon. But RED you should not put RED in your logo if you're doing stuff online. Like I'm just I know people like RED, and there's a lot of ad agencies that think it's a good idea. It just doesn't compress well. And you'll see all kinds of stair stepping and so on and so forth with RED. So you want to kind of think about that when you're designing your logos and designing lights. Next question.
Douglas Carmichael's up next. He says, do you think any major broadcast events like the Oscars and the Grammys will ever move fully to virtual production to give the increased flexibility of working with a virtual set?
Go, Bill.
To me, these shows are not necessarily about the show. I know that is the kind of the battleship around there, but the remora, the things around these shows are industries of themselves. I'm thinking red carpet fashions. I'm thinking the live production stuff that goes around. All of these things. I mean, there's so much money that gets driven in terms of marketing power from assembling that huge television audience and then selling it to advertisers, that I think there's always going to be some form of that attends these. And as you move out, I mean, moving out into a virtual space gives you other tremendous powers, but it's not the same. And I do think that people will always want to see that kind of gathering of interesting people in a location to see how they interact, how they talk to each other, what they're wearing, whether they give their speech correctly or not. And I do think you kind of get a little separated from that as you virtualize that. Now, on the other side of that, virtual has much more power in other areas, and economic clout can be gigantically more, but I think both of them will end up coexisting because of just what they do.
Next question.
Danny Grizzle in Longview, Texas. Where does the panel go for creative inspiration? Last night, I dreamt of a specific fine art exhibit I attended over 40 years ago, but I also avoid hiring lawn care because I spend time in this activity and it's my escape from external distractions.
Nigel?
I do lots of things. I think one of the reasons I quite enjoy road trips is that you put a talking book on and you defocus from the things that are worrying you every day. You try and give yourself a holiday. So whatever you can do to give yourself a holiday from fussing, walk away from a problem, go do something else, either physical or mental, distract yourself. Believe it or not, although it's an expensive hobby, playing a slot machine sometimes, because I get engrossed in the game, I walk away from the daily problems. And when I come back to them, I see them in a different light. The other thing is I try and be careful not to solve problems that don't need solving yet. Often we have problems that need solving now, but if they don't need solving yet, then it's sometimes just worth letting things play out, I find, because other things come into frame that you don't know about.
Or Jason?
Okay, this seems twofold. So how do you get inspired? And then once you have inspiration, how do you kind of let that mellow? For me, so the first part is you surround yourself with smart and capable people and get problems that are challenging. Office hours is kind of my release for that. And as far as the way that I kind of zone out and defocus is walking my dog works pretty well.
Bill?
I have a physical and I have an intellectual process. And actually, they're both kind of physical. For the physical, I do long walks and I do them with audiobooks, and I put them a little bit faster than their normal speed. And I just find out I zone out, and that's good for me healthily because I have a whole set of hills and things like that around me that I can walk through. For the other inspiration, though, I found that when I was traveling for business a lot and doing lectures around the country, I would always try to come in so that I had a full afternoon, and I would try to go to the local art museum. I have always found that art museums are a fascinating way to kind of percolate new ideas in your brain, particularly if you go to ones that don't specifically look back at traditional kind of European Renaissance kind of art. The more edgy ones will often, you'd see things that you just, and I never thought of that. I walked into one in Columbus, Ohio, I think, years ago, and as you walked into the beginning of the gallery, there was this giant inflatable Mickey Mouse lying on its side with blood dripping out of its mouth and its eyes looking dead. And I just went, I've never seen anything like that. And on the flight back, I ended up writing something that got really popular on the internet. And I swear it was breaking my normal brain pattern by going to that art show that helped me think about being out of my normal modes and doing something different. That's just how I work. Everybody else may work differently.
Next question.
Paul Wallace in Austin, Texas. Why is your home pod going to become a whole lot less annoying? And he's got a link there to a Macworld article on third-party music streaming services learn default.
Go, Jason.
I don't think that the HomePod is annoying, and if it is, then you need to get rid of it or learn how to use it. What he's referring to is 17.4, which was released today, and what it allows you to do is choose which stream you want. So instead of, play X with Y, you can teach it, if you're using Spotify, to basically omit the Spotify part of the command.
I've kind of learned, I've been really thinking about this with the Apple Vision Pro, is that there are people who obviously don't use any Apple products, and then there are people who kind of use Apple products, and there are people who use all the Apple products. There's like these three groups of people. If you're in the world of I use all the Apple products, I will say that you look at these kinds of articles and you're like, sure, knock yourself out. Because it doesn't really, it's kind of like I'm not using any of the other products. Like Apple Music works great for me. And I also really thought, I was really thinking about, we were talking about a Mac break about Spotify versus why I look down on Spotify so much. And I realized that I listen to Spotify and it just sounds flat all the time. And I realized that Apple's spatial audio, regardless of whether you think about spatial audio, if you listen to Apple Music for too long, all the other services sound flat. And you're not thinking about it. You're not going there because it has Dolby Vision
Spatial
because it
audio.
has because it has because it has surround Atmos. You're not going there because of Atmos or spatial audio. It's that your brain is getting used to something different. And when it really jumped out for me is that I guess TikTok is starting to support HDR, and a couple images pop up on TikTok and it's super bright. Like it was like, whoa, look at that. And then the next 10 videos just look like you poured oil on them. Like it was just, and you slowly get back to what the gruel was before, but your eyes slowly get used to it. But when they start to pop out, and I realized that, and the issue that Spotify and all these other services have is that they can't do what Apple's doing because Android and Windows are, when it comes to surround sound, are largely broken. And Android and Windows are good at other things, but when it comes to, as someone who spent a lot of time trying to get things like Atmos and spatial to work on Atmos or on Android and Windows, completely broken and fragmented. And so Apple is taking on, I realize why Apple pushes this so hard is because they put it into all their products and they're not in any other products. And so they can keep on turning that up. But if you listen to Apple Music for too long, you open up Spotify and you're like, what is wrong with this video, or this audio? And it's not the compression. It's literally just the spatialization. Yeah, go ahead, Alex.
Yeah, on the note of quality to spatial audio side, even if you're just listening to stereo music, if you have a decent DAC and you set your Apple Music settings to lossless, there is absolutely a difference in quality between. If you just compare it, play the same song, Spotify, Apple Music, there's a difference.
Yeah, it's kind of one of those things that I think they talk about the fact that Starbucks puts more caffeine in the way that they blend their beans. It has more caffeine in a Starbucks thing, so that when you drink coffee somewhere else, it's not as effective. And in the same way, I think spatial audio and vision is something that you get used to, and then everything else kind of is like, bleh. Next question.
Next one comes to us from Douglas Carmichael. After Ken Jordan's positive comments about Claude 3, I've been considering switching to it. However, Claude has no first-party mobile app. Has anyone had experience with multi-large language model apps like Poe? And he's got a link.
I don't think I have. I have to admit, this is another one of those things. Like I don't really bounce around a lot. I have a ChatGPT app that is on my phone, which I use, I don't know, 5 or 6 times a day at least, asking it things and having it explain things to me and those kinds of those types of things. But I just don't have time to try to figure out every nuance of AI. I'll jump to something if it looks like it. Again, this gets back into just not having enough time to do everything. Next question.
Bobby Rafferty in Central Florida comes to us next, and Bobby's question is, what are your favorite or new Apple Vision Pro apps now that it's been some time since it was released?
Jason?
May have been some time, but I kind of, I don't know. For me, it really is still at the end of the day. If there are new things, I am still completely enamored with the Moog like visual synthesizer. It still just it continues to get me, and I have lost hours on it.
The Moog's really cool. Obviously, the Apple Theater app is pretty awesome. Just watching the videos there. The Jig Space is still something. So I think about what I show people. Well, if someone demos it, they're at my house and they're like, "Hey, do you want to see this?" And you tell them where to go. So you have them watch a movie, then you go to Jig Space, then you go to Moog, and these are the things that kind of show you different things that are working really, really well. But I don't think that it's really the new apps that make a difference. It's just the overall experience of how you get around and how you get to things that really is what's selling it. There's a Red Bull app that has I don't know if a new one, but it's got a 2016 3D movie that they made. It does illustrate all the things we slowly learned not to do in 3D, but it's still kind of fun to watch. And there are some videos on there that are not, you could probably find them somewhere else, but I was watching, it just happened to be on the Red Bull app, of a helicopter picking up skiers on the side of a mountain, where the helicopter lands its nose into the mountain just its nose, and then hovers there while people get into the thing and then pulls away. And I was like, okay, that was a whole different level of pickup than I've ever seen in my whole life. If it's only on the headset, it's worth having the headset just to see that shot. Next question.
Gabriela Esesho Mistera in Sault Ste. Marie, Michigan says, how is this panel celebrating International Women's Day today in what they do and how they are bringing the lessons to be learned from that to others?
It's going to make sure that my wife's day is successful. That's the key to the operation, which I try to do every day. Next question.
Eduardo Augustine in Panama says, we are in 2024 here. I understand streaming is getting more and more relevant, but here in Panama, it seems people think it was just a pandemic gimmick. How to show clients streaming as a service is the present and future.
I think a lot of times it's not going to happen overnight. Keeping track of articles and posting them on your LinkedIn or Twitter or whatever, there's kind of like this slow poison that you want to keep on dropping into it of like, hey, by the way, this is actually here, or look at this is great, or look at that's great, or the reality of, like I'll pass around things that are that allow people to see that while many people are trying to sell this idea of going back to the office, San Francisco is about half full and they have given up. Like there was an article this last year, they've just given up. They're like, we're not going to fill this again. People aren't, there's not now San Francisco's worse. Most cities are 20, 30% less. San Francisco, because it was tech, the tech workers are just slowly. And the thing is that as people move away from those things, you have to find ways to integrate with folks that aren't going to fly in. That's the real issue, is that as people disperse, and we're at the beginning of that. What happened, and you have to understand, and it's hard, and different. And part of what drives this, if you're in Panama, is if the internet isn't good, if people haven't invested in that, in those buildings and in those locations and in all those bits and pieces, then it's better to be in person. Like it is better to be in person if you don't have internet. It's when you have good internet. But what you're starting to see is small municipalities in the United States, for instance, investing in bandwidth, because they know that they have a low cost of living and they can draw people out of the cities if they have good connectivity, throughout their, and that can be obviously remote offices, but it also can lead to more people moving there. I mean, there's a lot of people that just aren't moving to certain parts of the country because they don't have good bandwidth, so far Starlink has not solved that problem because it still goes out all the time. Which most of us knew when they put it up, like this is going to look really fast and then it's not going to work. But I think that you're going to find that what we talk about all the time, which I think is true, is that how are you going to handle the 99.99999% of the people, even in your own city, that aren't going to come to your event? Like, how do you get to them? And because you're giving that up every time you do a physical event, and it's not that you shouldn't do physical events. It's just that you should figure out how you're going to incorporate people. We're going to NAB in a month. NAB is a great location. You want all that stuff in one place. I want to go play with those things, but how do we include all the people that can't get visas, don't have time, don't have money, don't have all those other things? How do we keep on bringing more of that conference to them? And some of them are going to then eventually go, but it's not an either or really. But I think that companies, you're just going to keep on seeing it drive. And sometimes, I felt very strongly about virtual events and pretty much put everything into it, and had to close up what I was doing a year before COVID. And even in the business plan, when I told people what it was, I was like, pandemics will make this go really big. And so, but I was just a little too early. So you also have to kind of figure out how you're paying the bills today, while you're waiting for the ship to come in, which it will. Like we're not going to get rid of physical events, but they're going to become less and less important over the next decade. And that is a reality. That's like physics at this point. It's just a matter of how that rolls out. And there's a whole bunch of reasons for that. And you'll see some of them soon. Next question.
Burkhard Friedrich in Isterburg, Germany is up next. I learned about the product Dante Via this week. Seems to be similar to Loopback Audio Hijack. Any experiences on this product?
Ronnie?
Yes, and I remember, if I'm not mistaken, I asked this question a few years back, and the answer I got was, forget it. Start using audio hijack and loopback from RED Komodo. And the argument still is valid today. Audio hijack and loopback is being used on almost all machines we have, and that's a one single license that you just pay for, or a kind of combo license. And you can use it for almost everything audio on Macs. While we had some instability using it. VIA hasn't been 100% stable, but I have to be honest, I haven't used it for probably more than 12 months. I never touched it after we went all in on the loopback and the audio hijack.
And Mickey said, stays far, far away from that dumpster fire of a product. We love Dante. We use Dante a lot. Dante Via, just not a good. Don't go there. Like, just save your. We're just going to save you a bunch of time. Next question.
Next question from A. Schultz in Los Angeles. Has anyone used ProPresenter for live streaming? Is MimoLive a better option?
It's a different option. ProPresenter, really, the roots of ProPresenter was to support worship, house of worship. So there's a lot of tools in there that make it really great. What we've used ProPresenter for mostly has been delivering graphics. We used to use it because it was one of the few Mac apps that would deliver key fill graphics out. But really what it's designed for is house of worship, and it does that very well. I don't think it's really designed to do online streaming shows the way Mimo is. Next question.
Next one comes from Vic Hernandez in Springfield, Missouri. What was the name of the product or developer who was working on low latency network collaboration tools for musicians? I think he could also generate images from his MIDI keyboard.
Jason?
Oh, it was so good. The guy you're thinking of is Dan Tepfer, and his product is called farplay.io. And oh boy, is it great. I had a brief talk with him after his second hour years ago on Office Hours, and truly, thoroughly an impressive piece of tech.
Yeah, go back and look at our archives. Dan Tepfer's, we've had 2 sessions with him, and both have just been stunningly amazing. Yeah, next question.
Alexander Knight, Port Coquitlam, BC. In a hypothetical future where a majority of tech companies have no office space and exclusively remote workforces, what happens to all of that real estate? Do we convert them into residential?
Were you going to say something, Nigel?
Yeah, I was just going to say, I live in a city where they continue to build office spaces, even though nobody's moving into them. So I think there seems to be a belief that what the vision of the future that you give isn't going to happen, because they're putting a lot of money into office space and nobody's moving into them. I think the hybrid is going to be the answer. There are some jobs you're going to have to do in a group, often mechanical, electromechanical testing, access to tools and things that you're just not physically going to be able to do from home. So I think there'll always be a manual or physical piece of work that's going to require an office. I think what you're going to see is that they're still going to keep these offices, but they're going to redesign them, whether there's more hot desking, whether there's more meeting rooms, whether there's more, getting together areas. There is a point that you want people together in a room. Now, it will depend on some jobs, and it will depend on some people. But, developers may be happy to sit in the dark in their basement typing. Marketing and salespeople, other types of jobs really value the collaboration. I think they're not going to get it off Zoom. They're not. I don't care what you tell me. I've spent enough time on Zoom. It's really hard for most people to be creative and collaborative in Zoom. What happens is many people shut down, and there are some people that dominate. So I think there's still a role for the office, but I have to tell you, the developers are building them like they don't agree with us.
And what I will say, though, on the other side of that is that in a in-room experience, there are many people who excel and many people who shut down as well. So the problem you've had is that the domination of the extroverts has been turned upside down, and the introverts suddenly in a Zoom meeting oftentimes have the upper hand, and so I think that it's just a matter of this pushback and back and forth. I do agree with you that companies are going to have some. Companies are definitely going to want to have physical locations, and people are going to want to go to those things. But you're going to find that a lot of high performing employees are just not willing to move. Like they're going to go to where they want to go, and they're going to be able to do that because there's a growing, there's not that many of them out there. And that's what the tech companies have had problems with is people just leave. They're just like, I can get another job. Or for a lot of them, their golden handcuffs turned into golden parachutes. They've got enough stock. They can take a lot of time off. They can make less money. They can do all these other things. And I think that the near death experience societally of COVID had a lot of people reorganize their priorities. And I think that's the problem companies have is that their priorities aren't wrapped around their business anymore. Yeah, go ahead, Bill.
For me, it's been not just the offices, but look at how the whole process has switched. Once upon a time, right, you drove your car for 5 minutes in the morning to get to your high rise. You parked it underneath. You spent the day in their office in the high rise. Maybe you came out for lunch and used your car. Maybe you didn't. Maybe you had lunch in the office, in which case your car sat there until 5 p.m. or 6 p.m. or 8 p.m., whenever you leave the office. And then you drove home for 20 minutes. And maybe you took an air at the grocery store. Your car really was used maybe a half an hour a day. That was typical. And yet we had huge multi-story parking garages underneath all these buildings that were full of people. Now that you read stories about places like downtown San Francisco and LA and New York that are having trouble getting commercial real estate, you have not only empty office towers, you have empty parking garages and hard to use.
And one of the things,
what are you
really
going to convert those to?
We were talking to someone in San Francisco. It's not all of the buildings there are buildings in San Francisco that are 95, 97% full. It's all the high end, the AAA buildings. So all the high end buildings are packed tight. So basically what happened was all the companies moved into those. It's all the B and C buildings that are just empty. Like people don't want to, like that because there's not. Like, do you really want to work there in those buildings? So I used to have an office in one of those buildings, and I got to tell you, it's pretty quirky, And so I think those are the ones that really took the hit. I do think this isn't the answer to everything, but I do think that studios and supporting more remote events from the cities is a thing that you could do with office space that's empty right now. So building little studios and building inserts and building things where people could just go and be in a broadcast is not the answer to all of the real estate woes that are out there. But it could be part of one of the things that could be using. I look at all that space and I'm like, man, I could build some great studios here. Now go ahead, Nigel.
Yeah, I just wanted to add two quick things. I know when I look at a building being built in downtown Austin, whether it's office or it's homes, because of the number of windows and the number of balconies. So while you could turn lots of these office blocks into residential spaces, they're not really designed to get the amount of natural light that you want. So they actually have to do quite a lot of physical changes. And by the way, I saw a thing about New York, Alex, that just said exactly what you said, which is the high-end, fun, great quality properties, lead buildings, all sold out, all the other ones completely empty. The only other thing I wanted to add was, well, I absolutely understand if you are at the top of your game as a programmer, as a designer, you can go and live in rural Montana, and if they don't like it, you can work for somebody else. I'm much more concerned about people at the start of their careers, people who are looking for mentoring and coaching and making sure that in the virtual world, those people stand to get opportunities to be around other people who can help them build careers. Because what we're going to do if we don't do that is create a bubble that in 10 years, all the fancy people take their golden parachutes and companies will be left with nobody in the middle to support more junior people.
I think that the challenge really is that it's the discomfort of managers to use things like Zoom. Like one of the things that we had for office after hours is a little bit of this, but in for Pixelcore, we had a DC office and a San Rafael office, and in those cases, what we did is we tied them together. So this was in Google Hangouts long ago, but we had a room that I could walk into and just start talking to Greg, like, "Hey, Greg, how's it going?" And talking. And sometimes the producers would just go sit in that room so they could talk to DC while they were working. Like, and they'd all just be working away and just calling out, "Hey, what about this?" And the DC team would just respond to them and talk to them as if it was just talking through a window. And I think that culture is missing right now, is the idea that we could just start using these. And Zoom has made some moves towards that. I think that their solution has been a little complicated, but I think that just a simple having a window open, and I think we're still trying to figure out the best way to implement that with things like after hours and so on and so forth. But kind of an open water cooler that is where people can ask questions. I think that open conversation can happen. I learn a lot from this group and being in this, whether it's Discord or this. And I'm connected to so many groups in Discord and over Zoom and all the meetings. I don't know if I feel like I'm losing anything from not being there. And I think that the key is figuring out how we change the way we communicate. Next question.
Next question from Samuel Nordvik. Alex, which model of helping hands did you get for soldering?
Go ahead, Ronnie.
I have no idea what you have been discussing, but I would be using something like this, which is a small vise that can be attached to the table, and you can loosen it and you can angle it all the way. Oh, okay, it's a little bit tight now. Or even if you would go the fake route and use some helping arrow. What do you call it in English? This one?
Yeah, that's the one that the one that I just got is this one here. This is the. Whoop, did I do that right? Hold on. Sorry, I hit the wrong. I'm in the wrong screen. Hold on. Sorry, I just showed you yourself. Ronnie was like, "Why am I seeing myself again?" This is what I have here, and so this is the new one that I just got. And so here's what I like about it is it's got a it has and I'm still getting used to it, but it's got it's got metal plate on the bottom that's pretty heavy, and these are all magnetic, so you can kind of move them around, so they're not all wired in. So that you just kind of reorganize them as you need to. You've got a light there with a little magnifying glass. I have a bigger magnifying glass, so I don't use that one. But and then this is a vise that you can put this is actually one of the reasons I upgraded was to this one here. And then you've got an arm that comes out here. You can get lots of these, I think. And I think this is just $1.20. I haven't torn it apart yet. Anyway, this is a nice one. It's a little bit more expensive than some of the other ones, but it's nice and heavy, and you can put a lot of stuff on it to make it work. Go ahead, Jason.
All right. Well, here's what I use, and it's kind of halfway in the middle.
That's the one that I had before.
Oh, is it?
And
you like
what I'm
this one
upgrading
more?
from. I like I like the new one more because I have more options. But yeah, that's exactly the one I had. Yeah, so it's good.
Great minds, Lindsay. All right. Well, I'll leave it there.
That one's a great one, and I enjoyed it a lot. I needed the vise, and so I was like searching for.
I put the vise in the middle.
I know, but this one just has the vise built in. Anyway, you could put the vise in the middle. You could do that, absolutely. Next question.
A. Schultz in Los Angeles looking to get a Sony FX3 into NDI live stream workflow. Any suggestions on adapters to get the feed into our network since it doesn't have an Ethernet output?
Go ahead, Alex.
Yeah, there's two companies that come to mind. Both KiloView and BirdDog have solutions that will do this, that will ingest upwards of 4K 60 and give you a stable NDI output there.
Next question.
Ryan Thompson at Houston, reflecting back to yesterday, we talked about this a lot. Thoughts on Nikon buying RED?
We're excited to see. We talked about it, right? If you look at yesterday, we there's a bunch of discussion about it, so you can see our opinions. But right now, we just don't know. What we do know is that Nikon didn't have a very solid video solution, and RED didn't have a very solid business model. so the two of them together probably are going to be a great mix. Nikon did buy in 2017. They bought Mark Roberts' camera control. So I think I think it's going to be interesting to see how all those pieces come together. I think it's a great buy for both of them. Next question.
Aaron Cuthy, it looks like in St. Louis, Missouri. Did anyone have experience installing an external Bluetooth antenna far away from the receiver? Since Bluetooth is 2.4 gigahertz, can I use LMR 400 to extend the antenna around 100 feet?
Jason?
Oh, Aaron, please don't do this. Both the frequency and the protocol in my experience, this does not work very well.
I would not recommend extending Bluetooth. I think that's a pretty dangerous thing to do. Next question.
Jeff Cohen in Miami Beach, Florida. It was mentioned yesterday that jump cut edits are not a layout. Can you expand on that?
I think it's a layup. So it's just that it's not easy to do jump cuts well, I think is what Chris's point was. Yeah, go ahead, Bill.
Yeah, editing in general is not easy to do. It can seem to be, particularly if you start thinking really simplistic, like I've got a music track and it's on the beat, so I will just cut on the beat and everybody will feel good because I'm cutting on the beat and it all matches. But then you realize that, and I use the music metaphor a lot, great musicians do not get stuck with precision on the beat thinking. Jazz musicians are known to lag or accelerate a little bit, and it's that magic of interpretation that makes something really sing. It's one of the things we do in our edit. When I've got clients here, it's like, okay, we made a first pass and everything's in place and everything works okay. What can we do to make it special? Can I change the timing a little bit? Can I anticipate a lot? Show them something a little bit before I was before, and how does that settle when the music pulse happens a little bit after or a little bit before that? That is the art of doing it, and it's the same reason that you don't want every picture every artist makes to look exactly like what they're painting. Yes, painting a great bouquet of flowers that looks exactly like that is a great skill. So is when you give it to a phenomenal artist like Degas or somebody, and the flowers are there, but they're not exactly like it's there. It's almost better in a way. That's the art of what we do.
Next question.
Danny Grizzle in Longview, Texas. LensRentals.com has acquired Borrow Lenses, consolidating two of the largest online production industry rental companies. I'm wondering what the panel thinks of the rental landscape, local sources versus online.
So here's how I use Borrow Lenses. I've used Borrow Lenses for years, almost since they began. When I need to rent a lens that's not very expensive, that's a still lens or not a specialty lens, and I need to have it for a while, it's pretty inexpensive to get it there. They have a pretty good setup of you send it out, you close it back up, you send it back. It's cost effective. It's relatively convenient when time doesn't matter. That's the most important thing. When time matters, I find that I go to local resources. When absolute, like I have to have it and I have to have it now, and I have to know that it's going to be there. Then I tend to use local sources. But there are things like, for instance, I rent an ME20 when I need it, and I can't. You can't find that in most local rentals. And I think it feels like Borrow Lenses has one. I'm pretty sure I've only got the same one every single time. So some specialty stuff, as well as, I want to test this lens. I want to see how this lens works. For $80, I can have it for a week and play with it and make a decision. And so those are the kind of things that I like about Borrow Lenses and lens rental. But we know where the rental houses are for almost everything. Every time we go into it, like I know I've got Able Cine in New York. We've got a couple other rentals in New York. We've got VideoFax in San Francisco. We've got a whole variety of these that are local and oftentimes small. PRG is everywhere, so we can go to them. It used to be VER. So those are the kind of things that we try to. The key is with them is you have to get your insurance in, and you have to get the credit ratings. You have to get all those things, and so we get ahead of those typically when we start doing production in a specific city. Go ahead, Bill.
Also, I've been a lens rentals customer for a long time, and I used to try out lenses all the time and they even do video packages. I think the first time that I was ever on a RED camera or something like that probably came out of their rental house. The fun thing that used to be part of lens rentals is the guy who ran the place, and I'm forgetting his name for some reason. I shouldn't, because I read a lot of his articles, used to write brilliantly about the differences in lenses, so I could educate myself by just reading his synopsis of what is it about this 80 to 200 millimeter lens that makes it different from the other ones. And he would get down into the weeds. His shop, the repair guys, would understand the differences in vignetting and any chromatic aberration and things like that. And they would test them very deeply. So you knew that if you were looking for a particular result, like really low chromatic aberration, you could maybe go with the Canon instead of the whatever else, the Sigma lens, and you would get that result. The information was almost as important as the actual physical things, in my opinion.
Good, Jason.
Most of what I've used lens rentals for has been playing around with a body. So if you have a new body, and new body comes out, and you're like, oh, okay, well, is this the right thing? Is it going to have that one little thing that drives me nuts? Like, is the menu going to be unusable? You can play with it for 2 weeks for $200 instead of dropping $3,000 on a lens body and then trying to figure out whether or not it can be returned.
Next question.
Roscoe Jones in Madison, Indiana wonders, will anyone be attending the free pre-NAB Tech Summit this month? What other pre-NAB events are you considering? And he's got a link.
I'm not considering any pre-NAB. We're so busy getting ready for NAB. We're probably not going to. I'm going to go to GDC. I think that's the one that I have there. Yeah, go Bill.
Not really pre-NAB in this sense, like the month before, but the few days before NAB, they traditionally had really interesting, like, we're going to assemble a group at NAB and go out to Hoover Dam, and we're going to take this body of equipment and we're going to test shoot these things. And they would do a half hour or half day, sometimes a full day session on location with a really high level professional who could guide you through that. I never did any of those, but once I got a press pass back 20 years ago, I always wanted to extend my stay an extra day and take some of those more high level training things. So look around NAB for that kind of thing, particularly if you're starting your career and want to get a hold of some really good stuff, equipment, and use it in conjunction with an expert who really knows how to use it. It can be really valuable for that, to accelerate your learning.
Thanks to everybody for making this show happen. We want a special thanks to the production crew and the development crew on the back end for handling a zigzag today. So we didn't have, you may notice, we don't have all the graphics. We don't have all the things that we're used to. And but we did have a show, and we have not missed a show since March 25th, 2020. Incredible work by the teams. And every once in a while, it's only been 2 or 3 times where we've really had a catastrophic error where we had to kind of back into something, but we still do it. It still gets done, and it's because of the incredible team on the back end that makes that possible. And we just really appreciate everybody's hard work today. We know that there was a lot of running around before the show, and with everything going wrong, we still started on time. And we still had a full show. So just really, really well done on the back end to make that actually happen. Thanks to the panel, of course. We can't do this without you. And, again, the panel just kind of like, okay, what are we going to do? And we just all kind of ran with it. So just really, really great work by the panel as well. And thanks to the producers for all the great questions, keeping this going for almost 2 hours. And we really appreciate all of the incredible questions and your input and your votes. We had you voting on a poll today, got your opinion. So you'll start seeing some shorts with that, and it'll be all your fault. If you voted on that, it'll all be all your fault. So anyway, but thank you so much for your contribution and your questions. We traveled 84,000 miles today, 136,000 kilometers, and that is 669 million bananas for scale. All right, let's go ahead and jump into after hours. Oop, we made it. Yay. We even have
did it. Wow.
Again, well done back end. That was
really
impressive.
Well
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
you folks rock.
625 is like, yeah, we're working on a plan B. We have a little bit of an issue, and I was like, but it's
you knew at 645. I think
it was mostly like a
640
NASA thing. It's kind of we may have an uncontrolled disassembly of the ship on landing. Or so anyway. All right, great work, everybody. All right, see you later.